Hi, everyone, and welcome back, or nice to meet you if you're here joining for the first time. I'm Auren Stormriver, and this is the sixth installment of this year's Wheel of Revolutions. If this is your first time listening, the Wheel of Revolutions is my personal take on a cycle of seasonal celebrations, sort of like the Gardanian Wheel of the Year you might be aware of, which I'm sharing with all of you in the form of a series of rituals, meditations, and sometimes just conversations centering around every celebration's themes. As always, don't worry if you've missed some or all of the previous videos, that while there is some overarching theme to the cycle, and I do sometimes reference it or the things that we've done in the previous rites, you don't actually need to know any of it to enjoy tonight's rite as it is. Though if you do decide that you want that full experience, you can find a link to the playlist containing all of the rites so far down below in the video description. So tonight, we're going to be doing something that I've named the Rite of Communion, not to be confused with the forms of communion found in Christian churches. I'm kind of hoping that that video title didn't deceive any of you. If it did, I apologize. Please don't leave me any mean comments on your way out. But yes, tonight is the Rite of Communion, also known as the Festival of Outsiders. This rite is partly about giving reverence and sometimes reprieve to the dead or those who dwell on the other side, but it's also about seeking wisdom from that which is outside of and different from ourselves, and particularly from those that we might consider otherwise to be off-putting, unreachable normally, or maybe even scary. By opening ourselves up to having these experiences that challenge us, we can find a greater understanding of who we are, what parts of ourselves we need to reconcile or change. We may also find out things about our pasts, about our families. Sometimes we might find even some kind of closure to experiences that we've had earlier on in our lives by seeking out those things again and discovering where our feelings truly lie on those things, that side of reality. If we hearken back to some of the themes that we explored last time during the Rite of Descending, you can consider this to be a continuation of our journey through the night side of the year, and another phase of that overarching theme of the hero's path through the Underworld. In the tales that inspired a lot of these workings for me, a major part of that path inevitably involves the hero meeting with and interacting with beings that are native to that part of reality, usually to pass a series of tests, or to earn an important piece of wisdom, or to learn a lesson. And that's the gist of what we're here to emulate. We can learn a lot from those who have come before us, and even when we don't, sometimes just our willingness to interact or sometimes to give our aid can alter our journeys for the better. Now, if you've been here with me for any of the other rites I've done this year, you might notice that this one is going to be a little bit different. This is going to be my first experiment in doing a multi-day celebration with all of you. This is something that I'm sort of working myself up towards, as some of these celebrations that I've created, in my mind, are meant to be more than just one singular rite done on one singular day. For example, the Rite of the Serpent that we did over the summer is part of what I consider in my mind to be the Festival of Fire, which would, if I were able to perform it in the way that I want to, would involve multiple days leading up to the Rite of the Serpent. But considering that this is my first year doing these things, I've decided to keep it a little bit simpler, tone things down to the point where I can be sure that I can keep up with doing these rites and not burn myself out. But stay tuned next year where, all things willing, I'm going to try to do more things like this. Now, the way that this is going to work is that this rite will be split into 2 videos, with one as the opening and the other as the closing. The first video, the one that you're watching, will go live in the evening of October 29th, and the second will go up in the early morning on November 1st. During the time between these 2 videos, those of you who choose to actively participate, which, just as a reminder, you do not have to do if it makes you uncomfortable, you can just listen and enjoy these videos for what they are, will be free to explore your own experiences with spirit on your own terms, with the help of the visualization we're going to set up here in a moment. Since this rite lasts for basically 3 nights, my suggestion would be to use each night to try to connect with a different form of spirit. The framework that I'm using is the first night is for ancestors, those revered departed that have become important holders of wisdom within the family line. Some of you might be familiar with that type of work or worship, dependent on your culture. Or it may be completely foreign to you, as it was for me, given my upbringing at first. But it's always worth a try. And the second night is a little more familiar. This one is going to be for departed loved ones, those that have passed. The last night is for wanderers or strangers. This is where the outsider comes in. Now, obviously, that's just what I've chosen to do for myself and the way that it's intended to be done, but feel free to adjust it to suit your needs, do whatever's most comfortable for you, or just ignore it entirely if it doesn't work for you at all. You may already have a form of practice similar to this that is more affirming to the way that you see the world, and if that is what you would like to do instead, by all means, interact with this rite in the way that makes sense for you. One suggestion that I will make, however, is that if you feel it's appropriate, especially if you encounter spirits who are strangers, consider placing offerings for those spirits somewhere safe inside or outside of your living space, and refresh that offering for each night that you choose to participate. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the concept of leaving offerings, they don't generally have to be anything fancy. I normally just use a type of sweet cake or bread, maybe some honey, milk, or wine depending on the spirit or what I'm celebrating. Do whatever is within your means without being outright insulting. Don't put anything moldy on there. And make sure that when you dispose of offerings, that you do so in a way that's safe for your local environment. Some people like to burn them or put them in a natural water source or give them to wildlife. But if that's not feasible where you live for whatever reason, or, because of judgment from your neighbors or anything like that, in my experience, spirits don't usually care if you just throw them out, or some people even eat them themselves. I mean, by that point, the spirit is already done with it. You're not going to insult them for eating the physical treat after they have taken what they need from it. So, now that you've got an idea of what this is all about, I'm going to ask all of you, whether you're listening or actively participating, to go ahead and start settling in for our opening rite. You don't need anything special to engage with this rite, though. If you want to find a dark place and light a candle for ambience or for something to focus on, by all means go ahead and do that. Set yourself up as you feel appropriate to your space. Find a nice quiet spot. Pause the video if you need to. And once you're all comfy and prepared, let's go ahead and begin. Once you're all set up and prepared, I would like you to close your eyes. And I would like you to think about a room. Whether you visualize the room, simply feel where its walls are. I would like you to make a room that feels safe to you. You can model this after the room that you're in, if you consider that to be a safe place. You can model it after a different room in your house. You can create it wholesale. Whatever is the most comfortable to you, and whatever gives you that greatest feeling of being safe. Try to flesh out this room as best you can. Think about what the floor under your feet is made of, how strong it is, and how comfortable it is. Think about how that floor is designed to cushion you if you should fall. Designed to keep you upright and steady. Designed to keep you safe from anything that might be below. Remember that these materials need not obey the laws of physical space. If the thing that makes you feel safest is a deep marble or a stone like that of a castle, that stone can be strong and cushioning all at once. It can keep you safe in as many ways as it needs to. Let it be flexible and yet sturdy all at once. Once the floor feels steady for you, move on to the walls. Just as with the floors, make them out of something that makes you feel safe. Whether it's the comforting walls of your home, something that reminds you of a space that you lived in when you were younger, or maybe something fantastical or even natural like the walls of a cavern. Build up the walls and then the ceiling, all with the intent on giving yourself a place where you feel safest and most able to exist within yourself in a calm, steady state. Some of you may already have a place like this. Feel free to use it if that feels more appropriate to you than making a new one. Once you have your space prepared, you're going to give yourself a doorway. Just one. Place this doorway wherever you feel is most appropriate. If we consider the room to be a place within your mind, then this doorway is the place where you will reach out from. And it is the place where any visitors that come to see you will have to stop and knock before they can interact with you. If you like, you can make a window or some other form of entryway rather than a door. Some of us like to see who's coming before they knock. Some of us like to have windows to the side where we can peer at who is knocking. Give yourself the method of interaction that you think will keep you safest and keep you calmest during any interaction that you may have with those on the outside. Whether it's doors, windows, bank teller windows, drawbridges. All that is required is that you have a space that acts as a bridge between the safety of your inner sanctum and the spirits and minds of those outside of it. Once your door is done, we're going to make a barrier, a threshold to reinforce the concept of the doorway. Now, the way that I would envision this is with a line of salt that extends across the doorway, all the way around the room at all of its edges, making a clean barrier between where the room ends and the outside begins. If you intend to do it this way, I suggest that you put the lines of salt also upon the sills of any windows you've made, or any other points of egress from the outside. Now, not all of you may identify with the visualization of a salt barrier. For some of you, that tradition is completely foreign, and so, in line with the state of your room and the state of your doorway, think of what form of barrier would make you feel safest instead. Perhaps if you've made a form of fortress, you would feel better if there were bars on the door, keeping it from being opened from the outside. Perhaps you have a special symbol, perhaps a point of worship or a personal symbol representing yourself that you use as a form of protection, in which case you could place this symbol above the doorways, above the windows. Perhaps you have guardians that stand on either side, menacing any would-be intruders from coming across. Perhaps you have multiple of these. We set our barrier in order to inform those who would come to contact us that there is a point that they cannot cross into our space and into our lives without our express permission. By interacting from our safe place, with this barrier between us and the other side of the doorway. We keep our minds and our hearts safe from any charged interactions that may be brought to our doorstep. Because although the point of this rite is to open ourselves up to what exists beyond ourselves and to gain wisdom from that, we're not here to put ourselves in unnecessary danger. The ones who dwell in the night, they also must abide by certain rules. And if they attempt to disrespect those rules, we remind them that there are some lines that are not crossed. Not if you want to have an interaction, not if you want to have this communion. We also interact this way to stop ourselves from becoming inappropriate with our guests. Some of us are naturally very open to these kinds of experiences, to the point where we may connect too quickly or too deeply or in a way that is unhealthy for us without truly even meaning to. By creating this safe room and this reinforced gate, we can also limit ourselves, or at least remind ourselves, that there is a degree of separation that we should maintain for our own health. As our safe places are completed, go ahead and close up whatever doorway you've created. It needn't stay closed, just for the moment. Take another moment to reinforce the shape of the space. That place where you are at your center and you are safest and most wholly yourself. It's important that we understand what this feels like so that we can identify any changes to ourselves that we may experience from these connections. So memorize now what it feels like to be in this space. How you feel in this space and who you feel yourself to be. If you need to, take notes of what this feels like for you. Keep those notes. And over the next 3 nights, as we open ourselves to new possibilities, make note of any changes to yourself that you feel, and react to those changes accordingly. If you need to, you can always close the door. This is your space and your mind, and it's you who determines whether or not it is shared with anyone, be they living or not. I am not going to instruct you when to open this door. Whatever plans that you may have tonight or over the next 3 nights, this door is now yours to use. When you feel like being open to those connections, to the ancestors, to the departed, or to those who wander, and everything in between, you are in charge of when you open this door for them. And should anyone stand upon your threshold who is not welcome, you need only close the door and bid them to be gone. Because they have no power here, only you do. However, by use of this threshold, you can now stand at your open door, and if you like to speak with those who are on the other side of it, now you may. Over these 3 nights, we will all use our doorways as we see fit to make connections, to explore ourselves, or simply to offer our thoughts, our prayers, and our feelings to those who we've lost. And on the morning when our communion ends, we will return to this space and bid our travelers farewell until we meet them again. But that will be for next time. For now, bring yourself back to the feeling of your body. Your room is not gone. It is there anytime you think of it. With this tool that I've given you, that you've made, I ask you to take a little time over the next 3 days to find your connection to those who dwell on the other side, to the connections that you still have to some who have left our side of reality. If you feel up to it, you may even speak with strangers who may yet have something to teach you about yourself, or about your place in the world, or about the things beyond that we all think about from time to time. If you're able or willing, remember to offer small gifts to those who are wandering. Sometimes a small kindness can make all the difference in whether or not someone is able to make it to where they're going. Go ahead and open up your eyes. Welcome back. As I said before, what happens now, that's up to you. But regardless, thank you for joining me here tonight. I hope that you all find use with these techniques, and I hope you have the kind of experiences that give you a better outlook on your place in the world and that teach you who you are. Whether you're actively participating or just listening, I hope to see you again next time in a few days. And I hope you'll continue this journey with me as I continue to refine the Wheel of Revolutions and we look for higher experiences together. For now, I'm going to bid all of you good night, and thank you.